I'm going to do the obvious things first, just to make sure they didn't have water in the oil or that the radiator was holding up water and all that stuff. But then
So do you just use the...
And I pulled the head off of it because I thought I had a problem. So put a new head gasket. While I had it apart, I checked the valves, made sure none were stuck, checked all the valve seats, valve guides, make sure everything looked good. None of the valves were bent, none of that stuff. Had a couple of bent push rods, so I straightened those up. These push rods run up through here, and they actually...
Yeah, you're talking about when you had the head off, right?
So then when I got it all running, I had a new head gasket. Since these don't have a dipstick, so if you run them like a car, if you run it for a while, then you pull the dipstick and you can see if you've got any water in your oil. Well, these don't have it. So what I did is I ran it for a little while, then I let it sit for about a week, and I crawled underneath it. And instead of taking the oil drain plug completely out, you crack it open and you just have it where it's just barely hanging on. Just half a thread holding that plug on. And if you have any water in there, if you've given it a week or so, the oil and the water will separate, and the water will be at the bottom of the pan, and it will come out first before the oil does. So it's a really good way to check to see if you've got water in your oil. So you can crack it, and if you're dripping out a bunch of water, I got a thimbleful out, but that's probably condensation. But if you crack it open and you get a cup full, then you know that your head gasket didn't seal, or you got a different problem in there, and you've got water in your oil. So that means you have to rethink and redo. So this one worked out fine. Like I said, I only got about a thimbleful of water out of it. So then I ran it again for a little longer, probably 20 minutes. I then shut it down and came out the next day, and I pulled the inspection plates off. One of them, it's on this side, and I stuck a light in there, and I checked and see if my oil looked like creamy coffee. And
You did that again today, right?
And if the oil looks like creamy coffee, then you know you got water in your oil. So it's two ways to check it. You got to think of the oil as the blood in the engine, and if you got bad blood, your engine's going to crap out. If you got bad blood, you're going to crap out. So you got to take care of that. It had a little bit like one little streak of cream, but I think that's just because I haven't pulled the pan off of it and flushed all the water and condensation and all that from it sitting in the winter and rain and all that stuff for all those years. So I'm not worried about that.
What else did you look at?
So then I ran it again. Since I ran it, that got it pretty warm, 20 minutes. Then I came back and I re-torqued every one of the head nuts. It's got 17 studs that stick up through the head and has a big 7/8 nut on it. And I went through and I started at the torque where I stopped. I think it was 65. And I started in the center and I kind of worked in a spiral all the way around. Torqued every one of them to 65. And then I raised it up to 70 and hit every one of them at 70. So everything's nice and seated and sealed up tight. And then it wasn't really running right, so I didn't know what I had going on with it, whether it was the valve timing or my valve spacing, or whether it was the carburetor needing rebuilt, or whether the magneto was firing weird on the inside of the mag. It was missing and not sounding good. So the next progressive step that I needed to do anyway, since I took the head off, is I need to adjust the valves and get the valve set right. So I started there. And I noticed yesterday when I run it out of gas, normally when they run out of gas, you can hear the magneto click, 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 click as it's trying to generate spark. I can't remember for the life of me what the hell it was.
And it wasn't?
No, it wasn't. It's Anyway, it wasn't doing that. So I thought, well, I got a problem. So I noticed today when I was rolling it over, had all the plugs out of it, and I was rolling it over, I'd hit top dead center, but I never would hear the impulse in the mag snap. So the impulse stopped working. So I just happened to have a hot mag in the shop, so in the barn, so I grabbed one that was a known good and swapped them out.
And now it sounds right?
Now it impulses. You can hear it snap at top dead center. So when I roll it over, because these are adjusted, I need to roll it 180 more to get 1432. Cylinder number 2, make sure it's good. If you listen, you can hear it go snap.
That snap?
That snap. That's the impulse of the word I was trying to remember. That's the impulse on the magneto. So when it snaps, it means it's fire. It fires right then. Pop. So get off that thing. So I was about to burn myself. 1, 3, 4, 2. This one's pretty good. This one is a hair loose. It probably won't matter, but I'm here. Might as well make it right. Alright. Better time to fix it than when you're there.
So you twist the screw, and then when you got it right, you hold the screw in place and wrench the nut.
And then I
And the
wiggle
nut
the
holds
valve
it.
a little and check it. And that's pretty darn good. So that one's good. So should be okay. Let me give it a bump here. Make sure it's tight. So we just ran the valves, or we adjusted our valves. That's what that's called. I'll put my felt back over here.
So what else you got to check?
So now that pretty much everything checks out pretty good. Got good spark plugs, got good plug wires, got a good hot magneto, and it's timed right. Our valves are set right. The only thing that leaves for us running rough pretty much is the carburetor. So I have to buy a carburetor kit and take the carburetor apart, which probably is the problem, because when I got the tractor, the fuel tank was completely bone dry and there was a bunch of grit, kind of looked like sand in it. And I'm sure I vacuumed it out with a shop vac and stuck a shop vac in there, and I sucked out as much of it as I could. But I'm sure that same grit's managed to get through the fuel line, down inside the carburetor, and plug stuff up. So maybe our entire running issue now is carburetor, because it's got junk in it. It's not really responding to adjustments very well. So it's kind of feast or famine. You have nothing, you have nothing, you have nothing, and then it tries to die. Or you go the opposite way, tries to die, tries to die, tries to die, tries to die, whoa, and it takes off. So it kind of leads, by process of elimination, we've checked the mag. We know we have a good hot mag. We've ran the valves. I know our valves are in time right. Our valves are adjusted correctly. That pretty much leaves the only thing is the carburetor.
So we start it again to see?
Probably not. If it's the carburetor, it won't run any different. I didn't do enough over here on the valves or the magneto to change anything.